Hello everyone. I have to tell you I was really excited seeing you on Integrity and hearing your voices again. I can't believe it's only been a few weeks since I left Vermont. I miss Vermont's weather because it's absolutely scalding here in Saudi Arabia, but more than that, I miss being in class with you all. I really look forward to sharing the semester with you. I'll go ahead and start with the lesson plan. Lesson plan 1 is a reading comprehension lesson with linked skills. The context for this lesson is my current teaching context, which is the preparatory year program at Saudi Electronic University. That's located in Riyadh. Most of my students are 18 to 40 years of age. Some of them are in their 50s. The majority, just over half, are between 18 and 24 years of age. The target language proficiency level is the A2 to A2 plus band on the Common European Framework, and almost all of the students are native Arabic speakers, with the occasional Urdu speaker. All of the students have completed high school, although sometimes there is a gap or a lapse of several years. And some of them have completed undergraduate studies at a Saudi university for 1 or 2 years, or they've been overseas to study English and they've returned to Saudi Arabia for higher education. The reason for taking the course is because it is required by the administration. Students do not have a choice unless they pass the national proficiency exam. So it's more a matter of duty rather than interest. The course book required for Level 2 is Q Skills for Success, Level 2. As teachers, we do have some freedom to create our own lessons and add our own activities, but they need to be related to the course book and to the units covered. For that reason, for this reading lesson that I created, I chose a theme that is connected to the first units of Q Skills for Success, which is about marketing. So I chose the Unicorn Frappuccino. The Unicorn Frappuccino unfortunately did not make it to Saudi Arabia, I think for cultural reasons. However, students love Starbucks and they love Frappuccinos, and this particular lesson is about using Instagram for marketing purposes. And Saudi students love social media and they love Instagram. So I thought this would be an interesting topic for them that ties into what they will already be covering in the course book. There are 6 objectives for the lesson. The first learning objective is to activate previous knowledge of a social media app, specifically Instagram. The second learning objective is to identify the main idea and purpose of a short text that is graded for the students, meaning simplified. The third learning objective is to abstract details from that text. The fourth learning objective is to evaluate information in the text in light of Saudi cultural values. The fifth learning objective involves vocabulary. Saudi students, I'm sorry to say, don't really enjoy reading. So besides trying to pick a reading that might interest them, I also try to link in other skills, speaking, writing, listening, or some vocabulary practice. So this particular lesson has some vocabulary work added in. Objective number 5 is to find context-appropriate definitions of vocabulary words. So that's dictionary work. And objective number 6 is to demonstrate awareness of vocabulary meanings. There are some materials needed for this lesson, the first being the Unicorn Frappuccino handout. The text was originally from Newsela, which is a website that simplifies news stories for English language learners. The Newsela leveling system from easy to difficult corresponds to Lexile levels, which is an American system, and Lexile levels can be matched to some of the common European framework of reference bands. So I chose a level of difficulty that corresponds to the A2 level of the CEFR. I also took the article and ran it through LexTutor's range program. to find out which words, if any, were above the most common 1,000 words in English. The words that came out are the words that form the center of the vocabulary activity. There are, I think, 5 words that are actually in the 2,000 word range, which means that some of the students may know them and other students may not if they're at the A2 level. Another material that is needed is the vocabulary activity handout itself, which I will show you after. I like to make additional copies of all handouts, so I would have 35 copies. I would expect between 30 and 33 students on my roster at the beginning of the semester, although the number does go down. I usually end up with about 20 students in class by the end of the semester. That's very typical of Saudi universities. I bring extra pens to class at the beginning of the semester, and there is a whiteboard in the classroom, but I need to bring my own whiteboard markers. There's an ePodium, Epson projector, and internet connection located in the classroom. They generally work, but I try to arrive in class early in order to test the equipment. If the equipment does not work, then I have my whiteboard markers, and I have the activities pre-printed so that I can continue class with the students without worrying about technological glitches. I also bring blank copy paper to the first class or two because students often do not bring notebooks. For the warm-up, I would want to activate students' background knowledge about Instagram, how they personally use it, what kinds of photos they post, how it might be used in other ways. I want to see what they know. So I would project the logo on the whiteboard, elicit the name from the students, and then move on to 3 questions that they could consider for about a minute or so before discussing it as a class. Who uses Instagram? What do people share on Instagram? And that could be general or very specific, the types of photos that they use, and why do they use Instagram? Again, most Saudi students have experience using Instagram and other social media apps, so I just want to understand what students are familiar with and to get them thinking about the app because that is a key part of the text. The first part of the reading comprehension activity would be a quick reading for gist. I would set up a Google timer on the board to emphasize the time factor. I think about a minute and a half would be sufficient for students to read quickly without being able to read in depth. I would explicitly point out that we are not answering the questions during this reading. We will read the text 2 times, and this is the first time, and we're only reading fast, and we're only reading for the main idea. I could ask the students, are you reading quickly or slowly? Are you reading every word? Are you reading to understand every idea? And other concept checking questions to emphasize fast reading for gist. I would hand out the Unicorn Frappuccino text, and I would start the timer. And then when the timer is up, we would discuss ideas about the text as a class, a whole class discussion. The second part of the reading comprehension activity refers back to lesson objectives 2, 3, and 4, and those are about main ideas and purpose, extracting details, and evaluating the information in light of cultural values, respectively. The activity itself is a full reading of the text, followed by short answer questions. The directions ask students to write full sentences, and I chose to do it that way because I want to understand which students can construct full sentences and which students are not able to do so. As one of the first lessons in the semester, I want to make sure I can get as much information about the students as possible. I will need to explicitly point those directions out when we go through the handout before giving it to the students. Question number 1 is, what is the purpose of the article? Very straightforward. Question number 2 is, according to the article, who uses Instagram and why do they use it? I chose the wording according to the article because I have students who answer questions based upon their personal beliefs, and then I have students who understand that you have to refer back to the text. And I want to understand which students do what. Question number 3 is to describe Starbucks strategy. This would require students to pick out detailed information in order from the reading. Question number 4 is to write a title in the blank space at the beginning of the article. Part of that is about following directions, going back to the beginning, finding the blank space. I'm more concerned with tying in the title with the main idea. Did the student understand what the main idea is, and can they convert it to a title in their own words? Number 5, what is a unicorn? This is more specific. And why did Starbucks choose a unicorn? The answers to these questions are in the language of the text and also in the graphic, the photograph at the beginning of the text. I want to know if students can inference those answers. Question number 6 is, would a unicorn marketing strategy help sell dates and coffee in Saudi Arabia? Why or why not? And that requires students to evaluate the information and then to make judgment calls as to whether or not Saudis would respond to a similar strategy. When students have finished the short answers, they will get into pairs to discuss their answers together, to share ideas, and then we will discuss the questions and the answers as a class. I'd be very interested in eliciting the reasons for students' answers, as well as acknowledging differences of opinion so that students understand that sometimes there isn't one clear answer, such as for question number 6. The next part of the lesson is a vocabulary focus, which uses 5 words from the second 1,000 most common words in English. Those are words that students at the A2 level should be exposed to. They include neon, toast, source, frosted, and magic. These are 5 words that the students might or might not know, but I want to use them as a basis for dictionary work. I'm choosing to go with dictionary work rather than a cloze exercise or another typical vocabulary exercise because students get those other exercises in the course book. They have to do them. But one skill that students often lack when they come to class is the ability to effectively look up the meaning of a word in the dictionary. Students often choose the first definition that they find, and it does not always match the context of the text that they are reading. So on this slide, you see the 5 words, and there's an example of the activity that they will complete. There's the word itself, discovering if it is a noun, a verb, an adjective, or an adverb, finding a definition that matches the context of the reading, and then writing the definition down in A, writing the example sentence from the dictionary in B, and writing an example sentence of their own in C. And I'll go through this in a little bit more depth in the next slide. I typically have a full lesson on how to do this. So this particular activity will be a class activity modeled by myself in order to introduce the students to the idea of dictionary work. It's not meant to be a comprehensive lesson about dictionary work. It's only meant to be an introduction. The vocabulary activity would begin on the whiteboard as a class activity. I would project the document on the whiteboard, and I would open the Merriam-Webster Learner's Online Dictionary using the internet. We would look up the word, and as a class, discuss and decide which entry best matches the context of the text that we read. And then we would read the corresponding example sentence. At that point, I would show the students the paper copy of the activity and would tell them to complete those 2 items that we had finished as a class, item A and item B. When they had done so, they will take 1 minute to complete item C, which is to create their own example sentence individually. At that point, I would elicit example sentences from the students and choose a very good one and place it on the whiteboard as an example. For the other 4 words, the students would complete this as a class activity, but I would ask a competent student to lead the searches and the class discussion. And the whole activity should take about 15 minutes, although it could run to 20. The final activity is a communicative activity, posing a problem to the students that they need to discuss in groups. A Saudi Arabian date company wants to sell more dates and coffee to Saudis ages 22 to 40, which is the student demographic. Like most Saudi companies, they have an Instagram account. However, they don't know what photo to create in order to increase sales. So this is the problem that students need to discuss with some guiding questions that you'll see on the next slide. Here are several questions that students can use to help them discuss their ideas. And you can see I'm particularly interested in the reasons why students choose what they do. The activity itself refers back to objective number 4, which is evaluating information from the text in the light of Saudi cultural values. So I'm hoping that they will refer back to the text and some of the ideas in the text and adapt them to the Saudi social context. Students can make notes, and the notes will not be collected. And I would break the students into small groups of no more than 4. I found for my own students that groups of 2 to 4 work well, but groups of 5 become unwieldy. I would have to explicitly tell them that the ideas need to be discussed in English because I want to listen to their English and make notes. If you don't explicitly tell students to do this, they will actually simply speak in Arabic. As an assessment, I would circulate amongst the groups, listening to what they're saying and making notes, particularly of the information that they're using from the text, or the ideas that they're adapting from the text, and also any use of vocabulary from the text that they're demonstrating. At the end of the activity, the groups would put the notes away so that they're not reading, and then share their ideas with the class. And I'll try to, again, elicit the reasons why they chose what they did as much as possible to understand their reasoning and understand their thought processes. At the end of class, I would have about 5 minutes to do a very quick review as a wrap-up. I would project these 3 questions on the whiteboard, making notes underneath as we discussed the answers as a class. What was the message of the text we read? What did you learn from the text that might be useful in Saudi marketing? What new words did we learn? And perhaps trying to elicit a good example sentence again from for each word from the class. And again, these questions touch back on some of the learning objectives from the beginning of the lesson. Please share your comments on my ePortfolio. Let me know what you think of the lesson and ways that I can improve it. The Saudi Arabian academic year doesn't start for another week. We start classes on September 17th, which gives me time to make improvements to this lesson before I actually use it in the classroom. So your feedback would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you on Tegrity.